Welcome again. We continue with our conversation on the subject of fasting. Remember, we are taking this time to prepare our hearts and our minds for the season that is coming at the beginning of the year 2024, because we want to begin the year by way of focusing our attention on God through prayer and fasting, so that we can really seek God and seek to understand His will and His purpose even for our lives. And in today's episode, we are going to focus on three more reasons why prayer and fasting is actually important. And I want us to even continue reflecting on why should we engage in this discipline, because we are saying it's not simply because it's in the habit and tradition of Christians, but also Christian churches to pray and fast at the beginning of the year. We want to do this with understanding and appreciation, and indeed with a proper biblical foundation for it. And therefore, number three today, we are saying that the other reason why fasting and prayer is important is because fasting enhances our ability to hear God with clarity and indeed to understand His will. Remember, what really matters in this life is our ability to capture, appreciate, and also walk in God's perfect will. We are here to fulfill His purposes and His purposes alone. Remember, when Jesus was teaching us how to pray, He said that our priority in prayer should be for the will of God to be done on earth as it is in heaven. How are we going to appreciate and understand the will of God? Sometimes it becomes necessary for us to lock out all the other noises and all the other distractions that are coming from various people and environments that we are in, so that we can tune in to God and directly be able to capture what His will and His purpose for our life is. And we see this demonstrated in the life of various people in the Bible, but especially when you look at the book of Ezra chapter 8 and verse 23, a very critical moment in the life of the people of God, because they were relocating back to the land of Canaan, and after being in captivity for a long time. And Ezra, at this moment in time, wanted to capture and wanted the people of God to really capture the purposes of God, and to also beseech God for His guidance and protection. And he called for a fast at that time. And indeed, there was a lot of clarity about how to go about this pilgrimage back to the land of Israel. But the other place where we see this kind of fasting is in the book of Acts chapter 13 and verse 3. The disciples came together, and indeed they were preparing for the work of the ministry. This was very early days of the church, and at this moment when they came together to pray and to fast, there was clarity about the direction that God wanted the church to take. And indeed, in this moment and time, the greatest of the missionary journeys, or rather missionary activities, was initiated. Because we are told in chapter 13 and verse 3 that after they had prayed and fasted, they were able to release Paul and Barnabas to go and accomplish the work that God was calling them to do. The only way that the church was able to gain clarity about the will of God in this moment, remember, there had not been a missionary initiative before then. So the only way they were able to capture and appreciate the will of God is because they invested time to pray and to fast and beseech God for direction and guidance. And so that is also the other reason why it's important for us to really fast. And number 4, we want to appreciate that fasting is a way to petition. And of course, we're saying fasting with prayer is a way to petition God for His will to be done. Remember, there are a lot of oppositions to the will of God. And indeed, there are a lot of spiritual forces that are working contrary to the will of God and to the purposes that God has for His people. And when we get into those roadblocks, the roadblocks that the enemy puts on our way, when we get to those moments when the enemy is resisting and pushing us back, it is in those moments, as we engage in spiritual warfare, that indeed indeed we access even the powers, the spiritual power and the resources that we need, not only to push back the enemy, but also to release the resources from the heavens that we need so that the purpose of God can be done. The most important thing that God wants us to accomplish in this life is the fulfillment of His will and His purpose here on earth. May your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is our primary mission. That is our primary assignment that God has given us in this life. And how do we make sure that that is happening? It is when we learn even to petition God and God to the extent, whatever extent that is necessary to connect with God and His will. And remember what fasting is doing. And we said that last time. We're not trying even to twist God so that indeed He can somehow be convinced about the things that we are passionate about. No. What we are doing is that we are aligning ourselves with the power of God and with the direction that God is leading us so that there can be a flow of His power even through us. And indeed, there is amazing breakthrough that comes even experientially. When I look at my own ministry and life, there is a lot of breakthroughs that I have seen directly as a result of investing time even to fast and to beseech God in difficult situations. That could be even situations of sickness and diseases. That could be in situations of deliverance from oppression of demons and the works of the enemy. And we see that Matthew chapter 17 and verse 21, things that are impossible with men become possible when we intervene and engage that gear even at the place of prayer. But the final thought that I want to give us in as far as fasting is concerned is that fasting is a great way to humble ourselves before God. I want you to appreciate that actually fasting is not necessarily equal to humility. You can engage in fasting and you're still very proud. And there are people who fast even for a show and they want everyone to see how pious they are and how spiritual they are. There is no humility in that. But we know that indeed fasting should be a way of expressing humility before God. It is a way of even getting ourselves to a place where we are submitting in the presence of God and allowing Him to take charge and to take control of our lives so that indeed He can be exalted even as we come down. Remember the words of John the Baptist, may He increase as I decrease. And that is the attitude in the Christian ministry. And one of the ways that God uses even to bring us to that place of humility and brokenness is when we deny ourselves food and other things that we really want and our flesh really wants so that we can really humble ourselves before Him. Psalms 35 and verse 13, we humble ourselves by way of fasting. And I want you to appreciate that the Bible teaches that God actually resists the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. Do you want a grace-filled ministry? Fasting is a very important tool and a very important spiritual discipline that God has given us that will bring you to a place of humility and brokenness before God, and thereby you access the resources, particularly the grace that you need to help you in your times of need. There are many more reasons why we should fast, but I think those 5 reasons, what we looked at last time and today, are very foundational and indeed helpful as you prepare in this season of prayer and fasting. God bless you even as you continue to engage. Thank you very much. We looked at last time and today are very foundational and indeed helpful as you prepare in this season of prayer and fasting. God bless you even as you continue to engage. Thank you very much.